a marriage retreat that is coming up on April 27th and 29th. It's a short 1-minute video. I just want to draw your attention to the screen right now, and then I'm going to just highlight a few things you should know.
Our homes, our health, our minds, our careers, all good things. But shouldn't our marriages be on that list? What if all it took was one weekend? A Family Life Weekend Getaway Marriage Conference. It's uniquely designed to enrich your relationship, but it's more than just a conference. It's an experience for everyone. It's not just about sitting and listening. It's about doing, having conversations and working through projects together. It's about being in a safe place where you only have to share with your spouse, no one else. It's about leaving the busyness behind and taking time to focus on what really matters. It's about learning and understanding God's great plan for marriage, how wonderful and good and whole this relationship is meant to be. It's about taking a good marriage and making it great. It's about leaving with hope and a plan for the future. Come and experience a weekend getaway. It's so much more than a conference. Family Life, help for today, hope for tomorrow.
That's awesome. So this is taking place, as I said, on April 27th and 29th, and it's located at Atlantica Oak Island Resort. That's the old Oak Island Inn. It's now been completely redone, and it's a great experience. So the speakers are actually going to be Neil and Sharon Josephson and Dave and Russia Clausen. Now, a number of our church family have been on a marriage retreat like this before. And who are they here? I know that Connie and Doug have for sure. Who else? Yeah, a few of us all over. Everyone who goes comments how great of an opportunity this was to invest in your marriage. Now, here's what I want to say. Your marriage doesn't have to be in dire straits for you to go on a marriage retreat. It's kind of like how we talked about sabbatical with the pastor. It's good to go on these things and take opportunity to do these things before you reach any sort of, trouble spot. So don't take this as like, well, our marriage is good, we don't need this. Also, don't take it as, well, our marriage is not doing very good, and this is not going to be of any benefit. This is an important opportunity for all of us to consider, okay? So I want you guys to be aware that the cost of this is $380 a couple. This does not include hotel or meals. But if you register prior to April 16th, the cost is actually $280. That's $100 off. And if we get 5 or more couples going, there's a group rate of $900 available. And if you want more information about this, Connie's right here. Stand up for a second. Now, you're not going to see her in the balcony. Go ahead, Connie. You know I was going to say it today. There's Connie right there. Look, she's even wearing a badge. It's all official and everything. You want to connect with her. She can tell you more about it. But please don't let this go by without seriously considering it, praying about it, and getting more information about it. So I want to highlight that today for you. And also, happening just this week, there's actually a concert taking place right here. And we're going to show you a quick video about that as well.
Hello, this is Paul Balash, and hello, Rock Church. Thank you for hosting this night of worship coming up in just a few weeks with myself, Brian Dirksen, and our band. And we're just excited to come to Halifax and to worship with you. It's a family night of worship, and a lot of these cities are being sold out. Ottawa's sold out and so forth. So I hope you can join us April 19th at your church, Rock Church. So hope to see you there. God bless you. Hello.
Hello again, Paul. Paul has been, he's actually been here a couple times. He's a great man of God. This is going to be a great night. There are tickets available, but I want to say this. We're not selling the tickets ourselves here. This is an event that we're just opening our church to allow to take place. It's the same as with the marriage retreat. We're not doing registration ourselves. But if you would like more information about that, Pastor Justin is here. Do you need any more volunteers, Pastor Justin? No, volunteers are good. Come and take advantage of that. It will be a great night of worship. I don't think there's anything else to highlight other than the fact that I bring greetings on behalf of Pastor Russ and Yana. We're keeping in touch with them quite frequently, and they're doing well. They're doing better, I believe, every day. And just want to encourage you, please keep them, of course, in your prayers, and we'll see them back with us periodically, but of course, after June 1st on an ongoing basis, okay? Well, as I said, today is Mission Sunday. It's almost to the point now where I feel like I'm running a monthly television show. This is Missions Monthly, your host, Chris Ivany. And today we have two very special guests. Many of you will know and be familiar with. The first is Mark Miller. Now, Mark was the first person I met here when I moved to this church with my family 30 years ago. In fact, we were sitting right down where Jeziel is sitting right now, sitting right there. And on the way by, I think it was Linda Elliott grabbed Mark and pulled him in and said, "Hi, this is Christopher. This is Mark. He's new. And can you show him where," back then we called it Sunday school. I don't think we called it Spectrum. And Mark was gracious, though the look on his face was like, "Oh, no. I'm responsible for this new kid." We got over that, and we became very good friends. It just so happened, and I believe the Lord did it, we grew up like just one street apart, really, and went all through school together, and we become very good friends and stayed close over the years. So I'm going to ask Mark to come. He's with World Vision. I'm going to ask Rick Benwell to come as well. Rick handles all of our Go teams. That's our short-term missions trips that we do here each and everywhere. You guys go ahead and have a seat. There's no particular. I get the chair. This is my show. And we're pleased to have these guys here today because we're going to talk about yet another thing that our church is involved in with respect to missions. And I'm going to hand these two microphones off, and I'm going to turn on my microphone here, Crystal. Can you hear me? Okay, that's awesome.
Testing.
You're good. So, welcome to Missions Monthly.
Just one water? How's that going to work?
Just one water. Like I said, this is my show.
Asking for a friend.
So, Mark has actually been attending this church for pretty much your whole life. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Other than a stint on the tropical island of Newfoundland.
Yeah, there was an exchange program. I moved here from Newfoundland, and then a number of years later, Mark went and was pastoring at a church there for 7 years.
You had to fill the hole.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right,
I
yeah.
left by-
We have to just if you don't keep the island balanced, it will sink. So we had to do an exchange. And now Mark is working for World Vision. And it's been a great connection for us with respect to missions, and specifically what we've been doing on Go teams as well. So, Rick, why don't I start with you? Now, you've been overseeing our Go teams since when?
I really took over from Pastor Mike in 2009.
Right.
But I was involved in them prior to that. So I've been involved really from the beginning when we first started sending them out. But I've been in charge of it since 2009, and been sending out the teams,
Right.
dealing with those since.
Now, for those that may be new to our congregation or visiting with us, Go teams are what?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's an easy one. I can answer that question. Go teams are the vehicle, I guess, that we're using through this local body, through our church, to partner with ministries that we have a relationship with in different places. It's groups of people. Anyone really is, and most people here would have heard me speak about this when we talked and launched our teams a little earlier this year. But they're groups of whoever's interested in going with us to different places around the world. We partner with local churches, with local ministries to accomplish their agendas, whatever they're working with there, and to partner with them. And we've been able to take over 700 people over the past, now it's 12, 13 years that we've been doing these teams. To about 80 different locations. So, and this is all in partnering. They're usually relatively short-term. Our teams to Brooklyn and New York are about a week. Some of our other ones are 10 days or 2 weeks. But it's really just enabling all of us, normal folks, people in our congregation, our community, to be able to use your resources, whether that's time or skills or knowledge, different abilities to bless and partner with ministries that we work with all around the world.
That's awesome. And it was something that I want us to be mindful of. Two things. Number one, we do them
I mean, short-term missions is a sliding scale. Some people consider short-term missions like I went for 3 months or 6 months, whereas long-term missions would be like Lynette, I went for 25 years. You know, that's a big commitment. I don't know if you're aware, that's a big commitment. But everyone gets vacation. Hopefully you do. If you don't have a very good job, and we can help you find a better one. But if you do get vacation, there is no greater way to spend your 2 weeks than considering to go on a Go team for a couple reasons. You get to experience something you otherwise would probably never experience in your lifetime. We get to go to cool places, but God does something so amazing on the inside of you when you're removed from your regular schedule and committed solely to what he has for you for that 2-week period. Not just are you a blessing to where we go, but God speaks to you and he highlights things and he changes your life. And that's something that we enjoy being able to provide. And the other thing I want us to remember is that we do everything based on relationship. It's not about us going and saying, wow, Rock Church built this house or built this church, though sometimes we've been involved in those things. It's about partnering with people whom God has called to specific areas, to give them a little boost, to highlight the fact that we're a part of a greater church, it's not just this local body, and to just see what God is doing in these places. And it's been of amazing benefit, not the least of which is Ecuador.
Right, and just before we do that, one of the things I just want to add to what Pastor Chris just said is that if you've ever felt that you haven't really been connected in, or that you've been finding it difficult to establish relationships or friendships in the church body, I'll just put a little plug in to say that going on one of our teams is a great way to overcome some of that, because I've had relationships built. I know myself, I've been on many of our teams. I clearly don't go on all of them. I just can't split myself into that many pieces. But the teams I've been on and the people I've had lead other teams, and when you come back on these, you've got relationships now with people that you've now spent maybe between 10 days and 2 weeks with, that become permanent relationships. Doesn't mean you come back and everyone on the team is suddenly your new best friend. It doesn't quite work that way. We're still human beings, but you do develop real relationships. You do. And that's been one of the wonderful side effects of a lot of our teams. It's never the purpose, but it always ends up being a great result, is that we've built amazing relationships in this church, intergenerational relationships, ones where you start to be able to rely on and know other people better than you can when you just maybe run across them for a little bit here in church. So it's been a great thing for building the body of our church as well. So I would encourage you, if that's an area, and even if you're not struggling with that, even if you've got more friends than you can deal with, come anyway and you can be a friend to somebody else.
If you have too many friends, it's a good 2 weeks away to give yourself a break. If you're just overwhelmed. And I will say this, speaking of relationship, our involvement in Ecuador started with a relationship. Mark, why don't you just tell us about that a little bit.
So in 2013, I was sitting with Pastor Leonard Anderson and just talking about mission. And he had just come back from speaking at a church in, I think, Regina. And they were showing him what they as a church do locally, nationally, and internationally. And for him, he had one of those aha moments where he realized EBC wasn't really doing anything intentional overseas or globally. And so we had a discussion about what a global partnership could look like, where we could basically twin his church with a community somewhere in the world. And we had that conversation. And in those moments, if you know Pastor Leonard, he's a dreamer and just got really excited. He said, well, what if we did something with Rock Church? And what if Pastor Russ and us did this together? And I said, well, you go and pitch that. I'm not selling anything. If you feel like that's something God's doing, go for it. And so, long story made short, is Rock Church and EBC together came into partnership with World Vision to help transform a community in Ecuador. And what's really neat about that is not only are we seeing, and we'll talk about the impact in Ecuador, but even here at home, men's breakfast where we've got men from EBC, men from Rock Church, these couples retreats. We did a couples night out here about a year and a half ago. Right. But our two churches, working together here and having impact, but then globally in Ecuador has been powerful. So that's really where it started. And our first trip there was in August of 2013, where we actually got to kind of see the work, see the community, hear about, and then we launched the partnership in October of 2013.
That's cool. And
so in last summer then, in August of 2017, we ended up taking a group over. Can you actually put picture 17 up, which is an interesting random how it got to have that number, because we took a group of 17 people over to or down to Ecuador. There we are. It's not a good-looking group up in the Andes Mountains. We had the opportunity to take a couple of families. Connie and Doug Valdron and their 2 girls came with us. I was able to take 2 of my kids with me, and Mark and Kelly brought theirs. But then we also had a number of other people join us. And we were able to travel down to Quito in Ecuador, and then on to Manta, and then on to the little village of Santa Ana, which is the village in which the children that are sponsored by this church and by EBC, that's where they all are. That's the area, that's the development area that these kids all are in. So we had a great opportunity to go down and see exactly what it is that we're doing, to see exactly what it is that World Vision is doing, and to see how our involvement with it can be significant. Now, it's interesting because all the teams we've done before have always been in conjunction with local ministries, with local churches, people that have a relationship already with Rock Church or with one of our pastors. And it's been great. This one was a little different because this was really focused on the work that World Vision was doing. And to be honest, I was initially a little bit unsure as to how this was going to work because, you know, we didn't want to just go on a look-see type trip. That's not the way that we usually have taken our teams. We've usually gone to be able to do something, to be able to help, to be able to teach. And this wasn't, I didn't think, wasn't going to be that. But we really felt because of the relationship that we should go. And a lot of our people had sponsored kids, so we did. And I won't sort of jump into all the story because we'll get into that a little bit later this morning as well. But it was amazing down there to see on the ground the work that this group is doing. And not just the work that they're doing, but the fact that all of the work in Santa Ana and in the other villages or the other locations that we were really is focused on the work of the local churches there. And World Vision in those places is coming in as a partner with local ministries and local church as we were. So it was beyond just being able to meet the kids that we sponsored, which was a phenomenal thing. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But being able to see the work that they were doing in country, in the different communities, really was quite impactful.
That's cool. And I believe we have a video that highlights that.
Yep. Yeah, and if we want to run that longer video, we'll maybe hear from a couple of the people that were on our team.
Yeah, it's awesome. Let's check it out.
Hi, my name is Andreen Brown, and I've been at Rock Church for 5.5 years.
I'm Doug Baldwin, and this is my family. We've been at Rock for 15 years.
Hi, I'm Connie.
I'm Claire.
I'm Amelia.
My name is Sarai. I've been at Rock Church for 3.5 years, almost 4.
I chose Ecuador because it has a special place in my heart. I do have a sponsored child there. She was 3 years old when I started. Now she's 8 years old.
I choose to go to Go Team Ecuador because I saw the pictures of the kids that were sponsored by Rock Church. I told my husband that if one day Rock Church organized a trip to Ecuador, I wanted to go.
So having been to Ecuador and seeing the work that is done there through World Vision, it helped to benefit a community that just expressed love all around.
Staff, their dedication that they have, and the work that they do with the communities.
And being there and seeing what they did was just amazing. How appreciative the parents of all the families and even the volunteers with World Vision.
And the whole community is impacted by the sponsors that they have.
Where I had just walked into the room and my little girl spotted me when I came in, and she turned around and she just started smiling. And it was a magical moment because she couldn't stop smiling and I couldn't stop smiling.
The best part of the trip was being able to play with Lily.
We got to bring her some treats from Canada and just to meet with her mom. It was just, to me, that was just one of those moments that I don't think we'll ever forget. And another moment that really stuck out to me was they were so appreciative and so diligent of keeping this water reservoir clean, and they were so excited to show us.
So the partnership that Rock Church has is making a difference in the spiritual area too. You know, not only like feeding the kids and like having interesting activities, and they're teaching them, you know, the Bible and, you know, the love of Jesus, and this is like a huge thing.
I think in a lot of the things that we've done, you know, manual labor, or whether that's sponsoring a child, and it helps in every way to, you know, bring the gospel as well as to support people and bring them up.
It's always good to look beyond yourself and to help other people. You always want to change the world, but it just starts by changing one. Just go for it with all your heart.
We wanted to share that as a family, to see, let them see firsthand what God's doing around the world and how He's moving, and not just come back and sort of tell our stories.
Wow, joining a GOAT team will change your life in a significant way because it allows you to open up to people who you never normally open up to.
Go out of your like routine and world and your comfort zone kind of, and just see how people are living around the world.
Don't be like, oh, I'm only like young, like I can't help, I can't do anything, I won't matter. You do. And you being on there on a trip and going and helping, it does matter and it does make a difference.
For those of you out there who have considered joining GOAT teams but have been held back by whether it's finances or just by thinking that you won't fit in or you don't know what to say or just how the whole thing will work, I just said take a leap of faith and just go for it. You'll never know who you'll encounter or what you'll encounter or how your life may be changed by going on this adventure, I'd say. Most times we go on GOAT team to be a blessing, but we leave being the blessed ones. So I'd say it will be a life-changing experience for you. Just head for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's thank those that contributed to that video for that great job.
And if you're here or if you're on our team, is anyone here? I know the Valdrons are. Just stand up just for a sec. The people that came to Ecuador.
Yeah, who is on Ecuador? Stand up.
Anyone here?
There's a few. They're all up there serving today.
We got a bunch. Yeah, they're all, and a few of them are out in
course.
Spectrum because, see, you go on a GOAT team, you end up getting involved. Thank you,
right.
guys.
That's how I like it. So, a couple things now, Mark, I heard in that video I'd love for you to highlight for us. We heard about child sponsorship. We heard about spiritual things that are happening there. We heard some practical things about water reservoirs. And so, through World Vision, just explain to us the money that we donate, how that kind of moves through your organization, and what it does on the ground in Santa Ana.
Sure. So a lot of people are familiar with World Vision, probably because we play in the space of the greater, the secular world, for lack of a better term. So you've seen our commercials, years ago. You probably see on TV the horrific images of the bloated bellies and the flies and the starvation and the critical, the famines in Ethiopia and so on. And or maybe you go to an event like the Harlem Globetrotters or Stars on Ice, and you hear somebody talk about a charity called World Vision. But really, we started over 60 years ago. A man by the name of Bob Pierce, who, after the Korean War, met this orphan, and he was so moved by compassion, he had to do something. And we've all been in those moments where we just got to do something, but we don't know what. And poverty and all these issues seem so huge. And he had $5 American on him, and he gave the $5 to this little girl's caregiver and said, when I get home, I'll send more. And that really was the beginning of World Vision. That was the beginning of coming back to America at that time and going church to church, showing these videos, showing these horrific images and saying, we got to do something. We got to follow Jesus to the margins where these people are suffering. And now, in nowadays in Syria and all these places where 2 weeks ago I was in Haiti, probably the poorest, if not near the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. We're just hopeless. And that's how child sponsorship started. And so World Vision is an organization that does relief work. So when a hurricane hits or an earthquake, devastates a country, we're there. We're there already. But we continue, and we do community transformation, community development. And so basically, in a nutshell, a community invites World Vision to the table, and they say, we want to partner together. Here's some of our needs. It might be clean water. It might be access to education for our children. It could be help us with farming techniques. Our soil is, we need help. Whatever the case may be, and we sit around the table with local religious leaders, pastors, community leaders, education leaders, and we develop a plan for 12 to 15 years to transform that community to a place where they're self-sustainable, that after that time we begin to back out of that community and they're good to go. They're in a place where they've got clean water, they know how to cook nutritious meals that are healthy for their kids, and we start to see that transformation. And so that, the funds, the church here, and there's actually a slide, the World Vision slide. From the Birthday Gift to Jesus Fund, Rock Church sponsors 35 kids in this community, and I know EBC has a number of kids as well, which is amazing. And then beyond that, many of you sponsor children, and you say, well, it just comes out of my account or it comes off my credit card every month, $39. What does it do? Well, I can tell you, it transforms not only these kids, but their community. And a lot of people misunderstand. They think, does my money just go to that child and all of a sudden they get $39, almost like an allowance? First of all, that would be absolutely irresponsible.
Right.
It would make them a target. And if you don't change their community, nothing changes.
Right.
And so this money that you and I give as families and young people and whoever sponsors a child in the church is pooled as a community fund of which these kids benefit from. And so we've seen, the clean water filters. We've seen education. We've seen, Spectrum raise money for backpacks, and we were able to take those backpacks and fill them with lots of good stuff, soccer balls and school supplies and stickers and coloring pencils and all that kind of stuff. And we actually delivered those to the kids while we were there.
Go to picture 2 if you can.
This will be all of the children that Rock
It's a little
Church
dark,
sponsors with their backpacks.
So, again, because this is the best way, this is how World Vision organizes it. The money we collect here monthly goes to Santa Ana, Ecuador. It highlights a number of children, right? Kind of as the face to where that money is going. And a number of us in the congregation, on behalf of all of us, connect specifically with these young people. For example, on the previous picture, there's a young guy there named Edison. Well, Edison is our family's sponsor child. So we write Edison, he writes us, and many of you in the congregation have been doing that alongside of us, and we thank you for that. And actually, I want to thank Christine Bowerman for taking that over and helping us to organize that so that we can, it's not just about sending money, it's about sending hope and love and connecting with families through these children right in that community.
And I think there's actually 7 children right now that need somebody here to have that relationship, write the letters, connect with them. You can actually do it by email as well.
Yes, which is excellent.
Send them, care packages of stickers and fun stuff like that. And I can tell you when Andreen, when all these kids came into this community center, we had a big party one day, and they had clowns hired, and we had a meal together. And that little girl came in, she spotted Andreen, and Andreen spotted her because they had been writing letters. And of course, you get the picture on your fridge, you have the picture of your sponsor child. And immediately, because of that relationship, they knew each other without even ever having met Ecuador, Halifax, but they knew each other through that relationship. So pretty special.
Yeah, so you might be thinking, oh, well, that sounds great, Mark, but I don't have $39 a month. Well, as a part of what you contribute here, as part of our church family, we do sponsor these children, and we would love it if you would help us by adopting, for lack of a better term, one of these sponsor children to write to. And so we need, like Mark said, we need 7. Please come and touch base with us, maybe even Mark today, and we can help you kind of get that organized. And it's an important key. I always kind of thought that as, that's kind of the side benefit of it, and I was chastised pretty strongly by Jillian Forbes. You guys remember Jillian? She was working in our office for a summer, and I said, we write them when we can. She goes, writing is everything. And she kind of opened my eyes to it. She goes, these kids, they're looking forward to this. It's a bright spot in their life that they kind of are connected to something greater than themselves, and it's kind of like how we view missions. It's a connection point. It's a relationship that goes past just funds going from one hand to the next.
Just as a side note, I've actually been in communities all over the world where kids actually say, why don't I get letters? It's like, sorry.
Yeah.
We'll work on that.
Yeah.
And it's actually, a lot of people don't interact and build that relationship, but it means so much to these kids.
Yeah, and we've, that's sort of been a little bit of the way I was as well, because you look at this, and I know it's a good thing, but you sort of wonder, well, are the kids real? Are they really getting any of this stuff? And we sponsor a little girl named Gisela, who's the same age as Anna. So she's was 12. She just turned 13. And we sort of, certainly in lead up to this trip, we were thinking more about that, to be honest, than maybe we had before. But we'd written a few letters and got a letter back saying she was so excited to be able to finally meet us. And we thought, well, that's kind of nice. I wonder if that was really from her, or if that's, and you think it was, if you can put up picture number 4. and that's her.
That's cool. That's awesome.
And it's that time when you sort of see this, and it can be all, yeah, that's a very emotional, kind of cute little thing, but when you actually get a chance to talk and see them, and more importantly, to be honest, that was wonderful meeting her, but for me it was even more impactful to meet her mom. And I mean, these aren't all orphans necessarily, but they're kids in a community and villages that are really have challenges, that really need things. And to be able to speak to her mom and to see how much of a difference. And again, like Mark says, it's not like they get a little check or a bunch of cash once a month. It goes into ensuring that she gets to go to school and that her community gets the sanitation that it needs and that they get the other support that it needs. So it's not, even though she's the face of our support, she's not necessarily the sole recipient of our support. Yeah. And it was so amazing, but to be able to put in, not just a face, because we've got the face on our fridge, but to be able to put a life to that connection was amazing. If you also want to, let me see here, if you can show us picture number 19.
There we go.
There we go. There's another real situation. And I know when Doug and Connie and their kids met the little girl that they were sponsoring and her family, again, this is real stuff, and it's a real connection that our church had. And again, just seeing the effect, because we had this event. This was wonderful. We were able to give out these backpacks that Spectrum had raised the money for. If you want to put up slide number 11, that shows a number of the kids. Again, these are all some of the kids that the church supports, or maybe individual family support, and they have these backpacks that the Spectrum kids here paid for and filled with all sorts of things for them, school supplies and some toys and some little treats and things. But just to be able to make that connection and to see that these kids, it was making a difference to them. It really, really was. And to spend the time with them was impactful. But even more so than this event was, afterwards we were able to go out into some of the villages where they were from, because they brought all the kids to us in one place in the center of Santa Ana. And then after that, we had an opportunity to travel out to some of their communities and see some of the changes that were being made there as well.
I mentioned I was in Haiti 2 weeks ago with a pastor from Fredericton, and the first day, he actually was a little hesitant to go on this trip because he thought, Mark, I trust you guys, and I think the money might be better spent just giving it to the projects. I said, well, Pastor, I think you need to come and see what's happening. And the first day in the school, when we were seeing some of the hand washing station and some of the, where the water was being filtered, he said, you've wrecked me. I first got wrecked by this whole thing in 2010, my first trip to Ecuador. And I went to this little daycare, and I remember walking in, and through the back door, the backyard had their playground. When I say the word playground, right away, we all think of a Canadian playground. I want you to think of the worst playground you've ever seen in maybe an abandoned kind of, where the school maybe is closed now, or that would be a million times better than this playground. I use the word playground loosely. I mean, it was dilapidated. And I remember at that time, it was 8 years ago, and I'm thinking about my Maria back here and the playground and what she has access to, starting at Tiny Treasures, right up through. I mean, not only do we have good playgrounds, we have now the ground and the playgrounds are squishy and kids don't get hurt. I mean, they're top of the line. And I remember being wrecked by the unfairness of where my kids were born and where these kids were born. And somebody once said, where you live shouldn't determine whether you live. Yeah. And I remember shooting a video, leaving, because I wanted to capture this moment, and I'm crying, and I'm ugly crying, and because I'm wrestling with the reality that these kids have versus my kids and how blessed they are. And I remember coming home and saying, we got to do something, and I don't know what, but one of the things we can do is sponsor a child. I mean, I work for World Vision, my goodness, I should do this. And I remember getting a bunch of picture folders, and we put it on the island in our kitchen, and I said to Maria, because I just felt the connection, I said, why don't you pick out a child that we can help? This is one way we can do something. And so she picked out a little girl named Maria. So I call her my other Maria. So in 2013, I got to meet my other Maria. And I talked to her mom, and I said, what does it mean to you that, because I thought this is kind of awkward. I can imagine somebody from South America coming to Canada and having this relationship with my kids, and so I said to the mom, what does this mean for you to know that Maria has a sponsor? And she said, well, when she gets sick, I know I can bring her here. And again, I got wrecked because in that winter, my Canadian Maria, had strep throat 6 times. Parents, you know what that means. That means a trip to the walk-in clinic where you get frustrated when you wait for more than an hour and everybody's coughing and you're scared to catch something. Then you go in and you get a prescription, and then you get even more upset that you got to wait 45 minutes for Lawtons to fill the prescription, and in a few days they get better, and we're inconvenienced by that. And all of a sudden I realized this small donation a month that I can help, this bigger picture, we're helping my other Maria. And so in 2013, I said, we spent some time together, and she came up to me through the translator. She said, the next time you come, I want you to bring your Maria. Because she knew, I told her, I showed pictures of her family. So Maria number 2, I've got a slide here where this summer, both of my Marias finally got to meet each other. I think we've got a picture of it, Maria 2. It was added at the last minute. Maybe it's not. There it is.
That's awesome.
So there's my other Maria. And her and her baby sister came, and her mom. And just to see, and we've had those conversations, when we first started sponsoring a child, we said this is going to mean probably one less Sunday going to Subway after church. One Sunday when we're done in Spectrum and nobody wants to cook and we just want to, relax. And this will mean one less thing. This will mean, giving a little bit more. And I've got another slide. Josiah, of course, came with us. And so Josiah's there with her. And just the joy to know that, there are people all over the world. What Rock Church does here is so much bigger than what's done in this building and this room on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And we forget about it sometimes, but thank you so much, for all of you that do this and have participated in missions and go teams. I'll tell you, it makes a difference.
That's cool. Yeah, $39 a month would be like our family going to McDonald's if we left 2 kids at home. So, I get it. So Mark, I love kids, obviously, because we keep having them.
Is that an announcement?
That sounded like an announcement to me.
No.
Congratulations, Jen.
Carry on.
I'm all for clean water. I think that's wonderful. I'm all for, medicine and all that stuff, but I'm a local church guy. My heart is local church. My heart is gospel, and I'm not opposed to any of it. But tell me about the local church in Santa Ana and how they benefit from a relationship like this through World Vision.
Well, I'm going to throw it to Rick because I think if I'm not mistaken, one of Rick's most impactful wrecked moments of this trip was in a place called La Violeta.
It was, yeah. Just before I get to that, though, let me throw up slide number 16, if you would. Because as much as we talk about World Vision, and I do believe in that, this really isn't about World Vision. World Vision were a wonderful partner for us, but my heart really is to see local churches and our impact with our team grow through local church. That's where I believe most of our impact can be around the world, because we can go with the team for a week or 2 weeks, but the other 50 weeks of the year, we're not there. And really who's called to impact that community is the local church in that community. So I see our role very much as to be able to be the facilitators, the encouragers, maybe the resourcers from time to time of local church, so that when we go and leave again, that it's work that's still going on. So as much as I believe in World Vision, I think they're doing a wonderful job. They have a role, as all NGOs, as all these sorts of organizations have around the world. They have a role. But really the responsibility of bringing Christ and bringing the gospel to a local area is through the local church. So this was a local church there that works in the area, and these guys are the ones that are the real heroes in getting this, in dealing with these kids and dealing with this community. They work alongside and as partner with the local World Vision office, and World Vision provides great resource for them and great ideas, but these are the people that are there all the time living and doing this. And I was so proud to be able to work with some of these pastors in some of these local churches and to see the relationship that they have with the local country directors for World Vision and with their local staff workers. But it's these people, it's these local churches that are really making the difference. So that was a piece that was really encouraging to me to see, because again, it's not just a Western aid organization that's coming in distributing money to the communities and doing good works. It's being able to go in and fund and encourage and resource and push forward the local churches who have that calling, who these are their people, these are their communities, and they're doing the work. So this was one little church that we were able to go in that's working in that area of Santa Ana, from which a number of the kids come from. It was amazing, and just if you want to
Slide 14, actually, slide 14 is
Yep.
another picture with a couple of the pastors. I'll tell you what, though, I work with churches all over Atlantic Canada, raising support and engaging with. And it's interesting to me because most of our churches, Rock Church obviously a little different, but for the most part, during the week, churches are pretty quiet. Not a lot happens here. Rock Church, again, is different. But a lot of churches I work with, during the week, you'll be lucky to get in the front door. They're usually locked. The local church should be the center and the hub of the community where hope is dispersed on a daily, hourly basis. And it's so cool because in Ecuador, I've been in churches where, I was, again, back 2 weeks ago in Haiti, there was a pre- and postnatal care clinic. Where was it happening? At the clinic? No, in the local church. It was the local church that is really the center of hope for these communities. And I just think that's what God intended the local church to be.
Right.
Yeah, and for anyone that ever complains about getting to their local church, if you want to put up slide number 6, that picture of the church I just showed you, this is how we got there. There you go. That's the bridge to get
That's
to
why
the
we
church.
sign waivers, kids, right there.
And they showed up on time. I'm going to throw that out there too. Crossed the bridge and was on time. That's for all of you.
Actually,
Shots fired.
I don't turn around for the first 2 songs, and I'm sweating bullets that no one showed up today. So help a brother out and come on time.
Those are the early attenders clapping.
I was going to say, all the on-time people are, yeah, that's right.
Mark mentioned another place, La Violeta. Let me talk just for a minute about that. I won't go on too long, but there was another village, and this was way up in the Andes Mountains. I mean, we were in 2 different places, to be clear, in Ecuador when we were there. We were near Santa Ana, which was by a big town named Manta. It's really right on the coast of Ecuador. So it's down in the lowlands. It's very warm. There's lots of banana trees. It's just hot, muggy, humid. That's where Santa Ana is. But we also went to visit another community which is more to the west of Quito, Quito's in the center of the country, and this is up in the Andes. This is up in the mountains. So we went, from one day from being, always in damp T-shirts because that's about, you just couldn't dry it out. It was so hot and wet, to the next day when we drove and we got out of the bus for a little bit for breakfast, and I was really, really sad that I didn't have my down jacket with me because you're suddenly up at 30,000 plus feet, and it's just like, this is way up in the mountains. You're way, way, way up there, and hard to breathe, it's hard to move, it's hard to walk, but there's this little community way up there that we came to called La Violeta, and what it is it's a local community, and World Vision there has partnered really with a local church in the area and also with another church out of Texas. So this is like a 3-way partnership from an international church, a local church, and World Vision as an NGO, and they have built a center there where they're training children, or not training children, they're providing training to older sort of high school and above kids who are getting ready to take their exams. And in Ecuador, you have to take a certain entrance exam to get into university, and most kids in these rural areas just don't have the ability to do that, or when they do take the exams, they just don't have the proper training to pass them. And this is a project that, again, was brought up by the local church as a need, saying we'd really like this, and together with partnering with an international church and with World Vision, they've produced this center where they're training these kids. They bring them in for a number of weeks, they prepare them to write their exams, and they have a huge success rate as far as the kids going out and passing. And this provides them, again, this isn't the answer to everything, but it opens a door to them that wouldn't otherwise be open for them to be able to go, to be able to do something, and to be able to come back and bless their own communities. So it was an amazing project that I saw that was a beautiful example of how you can take an NGO like World Vision, partner it with a local church, partner it with an international church, and really see amazing things done. And I've seen that as, I think, a great model of some things that we may be looking at doing even through here in the future.
That's very cool. Well, just as we get prepared to close, Mark, any last thoughts, things you want to highlight to the church family? There's one takeaway from your end?
The big thing is thank you. I know so many of you support World Vision, sponsor children, Birthday Gift to Jesus, all of that. I just want to remind you that it works, and that we can do this. We can actually change the world.
Yeah.
Part of what I do, I'm confronted with poverty and injustice all the time. I see it, just desperate situations, and it can be very overwhelming. As can our situations here in Canada. We all have, stuff we're going through. But there's a new filter, a new perspective that I have that, when I go to the superstore, I can't buy cereal the same anymore because I'm overwhelmed with all the selection. Because I've been in communities where there is no superstore, there is no cereal, there's nothing. And so to be able to sponsor a child is one small way. To go on these Go teams is one small way that we can not only bring support, but bring encouragement and bring hope and dignity back to people and raise our voice for people that don't have a voice. So we actually, some of our team members this morning that were in the video are on tables upstairs and downstairs. We do have more kids in these communities that need support. And the more projects we can do with them and the more change we can bring to these communities. If you've never sponsored a child, and maybe you're a business person, maybe you're a young couple, maybe you're grandparents and you're at a place in life where you could do this. You could sponsor a child every month and start that relationship and see transformation come to a family, to a child, to a family, and ultimately to a community. Come by one of the tables today. We'd love to answer questions, any questions you have, anything like that. But we've been there. The team's been there. They'll answer your questions. But Rock Church, again, I can't say it loud enough. What happens in this building is just a little piece of the picture.
Yeah.
This church is having phenomenal influence and has been an example across the country for other churches that I've told the stories of how EBC and Rock Church have come together and they're making a difference. So you've really pioneered in a lot of ways, making an impact. So thank you for that.
That's cool.
And I agree with that. And but just as I said before, World Vision is an amazing organization, and I encourage everyone to do that. We do that. If you're not already sponsoring a child, you should do that. But just remember that that's one way, but there's all sorts of other ways that you can be impacting your world around you, whether it's here, whether it's in other places. The Go teams are another example of that, and you can be involved in that, or you can be involved in some of the ministries that we have here working into our community in Sackville and in Halifax, because there's all sorts of things you can do. The key is not so much what you do, the key is that you're doing something. Yeah. That's what I always say when I come back from our teams, because our teams will come back from different places overseas, and just as Mark has said, you'll be overwhelmed by the choices you have in the supermarket, or you'll look around your house and you'll realize I have 7 of these things and the people I were with don't even have one. I have far too much. And I always tell people to come back, and you might be inclined to feel angry when you're back from all the people around you now that don't realize this, or maybe guilty because you've got so much. Neither one of those are positive reactions to it. What your reaction really needs to be is, but what God do you want me to do? Right. Because it may not mean selling everything you have and moving somewhere. In most cases, that's not it. But what it does say is that you can do something. And what encourages me is when we travel, when we see some of the local churches like you've seen here, when we have an opportunity to encourage those people, to those pastors, those leaders in another place, that makes a tangible difference. I was just over in Africa, actually, again, this week on different matters, and a person there said, who wasn't a Christian at all, because we were talking about this a little bit. I travel on business, but I also usually bring it around to some of the reasons I really want to be in those places. And he said, we see here, but the government never does anything. They never really help anything. The money comes in and they just keep it. He says, but the church people, they're trying to help, and in a lot of cases, they do. And I know it was his sort of clumsy way of trying to talk about something that he had seen, and certainly not all the churches are doing great things, but a lot of them are. And they're making a difference, and the community churches in some of these places are making a big difference. Our role needs to be to stand with them, to encourage them, because we don't go out and save the world. We know that God is the one that does that. Jesus is the one that's going to move by his Holy Spirit into their hearts. It's not our job to go there. He's already there. He's already doing these things. It's our job to be able to partner with and resource and encourage those members of our family that are out there in different places. So we had that wonderful opportunity in Ecuador. We're going to have that wonderful opportunity again this year in Zambia and in Brooklyn and in Nain to stand with partners and with wonderful people who are already doing God's work. So I want to thank you as well, because without all of you guys coming and doing this and partnering and giving in the birthday gift to Jesus and other things, we couldn't do it. So thank you very much for all of your support as well.
Yeah, I want to thank both of you guys for obviously for today, certainly. These guys travel a lot, trying to get the three of us in a room at one particular time. It's like, Mark, I'll be back from Haiti on Wednesday. Rick's like, well, I'll be back from Africa on Friday. And I'm like, well, I have to be in Bedford by 2, so if we could try and schedule that a little bit around me, I'd really appreciate it. But as much as they do through where they work and everything like that, they actually are amazing contributors to the life of our church family in ministry. So I thank you for the day, and let's just thank them all for presenting today. Thank you, guys. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Well, as the worship team comes back, and just as we prepare to close, there's just a few things that I would like you to take away from today. Obviously, all this information is important. We want to keep you as informed as we can about where the missions dollars are being spent. I think that's important. But more than just that, we want to remind each of you that our greatest partnership is in not just giving financially and not just going, but also in the place of prayer. I want us to be mindful of that. Let's do our best as much as we can from a leadership perspective to remind you where we go and what we're doing. There's really no greater thing we could do aside from these partnership opportunities than to pray and believe. So as we stand to our feet and as the worship team prepares to close